Welcome. I'm Sue Landay from Trainer's Warehouse. This is Show and Share, and today we are with Rob Jolles, who is a lifelong trainer, as he calls himself. He's a best-selling author. I first met Rob, I don't even know. It was probably years and years ago because you've been a Trainer's Warehouse customer for many years, but he invited me several months ago to be part of his podcast. And we had such a great time doing that. I said, we need to flip that and I need to have you on a show and share. So happy to have you here. So we were talking earlier that Rob has been in this business for like 40 years. He's traveled over 3 million miles. He has a book that's now in its fourth edition, How to Run Seminars and Workshops. And I'm delighted to have, and there it is. Um, Sold 150,000 copies. Kudos to you. So you told me before we started, when we were just kind of getting ready, that you could transform any aspect of training into enter training and make it exciting and engaging. So let's start at the beginning. When you're getting started, how do you make this happen?
Okay. And first of all, I was in a very cocky mood when I said that. I just want you to know I want to walk some of that back. I don't know if I can do it all, but I
Well, I
think
don't know. You also have a Robble head. So, as I recall.
this is entertaining. Some people give away pens or pencils. I have robbleheads. But we'll talk about that. Yeah, it's funny. I saw a cooking show one time with my wife, and we were watching it, and they had a guest chef, and they said, this person, you cooked this chicken perfectly. The temperature, and it's the hero of the meal. It's the protein. He said, but your sauce is off, and 75% of the meal is the sauce. And I really believe as trainers, as speakers, that we've got content. A lot of times it's gone through compliance. It might go through a department that created it, but we got to put the sauce on it. And that's the entertaining part that I want to talk about. So, yeah, out of the gate, I really think we, first of all, should ditch the tell them what we're going to tell them, and then tell them what we told them story. Just because it was wonderful in ninth grade, there's so much more we need to do before we get started. We can do it creatively. We can tell a story. We could, use, bring in a quote. I like to actually kind of look at the paper or just look around before I get in, or if there's another speaker speaking and pick up something that they've said. So I'm kind of a pack rat in the back there. So I can say, when earlier Sue was talking, she mentioned this, and I thought she did a great job of that. In keeping, and now I come in. So again, it's just sort of smoothing out that entry a little bit rather than, hi, we're going to talk about blank. So, quite frankly, I think the most important thing before we even put any sauce on it is what's in it for the audience. In sales, many of my books, I've got 7 books. I make my living in the sales arena. I teach a lot of salespeople. A lot of my books are on influence and persuasion, but we use something called a WIFM, and it stands for What's in it for me. And I'm trying to figure out how far down the line you want to go before we address that one. Because I think we all know as trainers, not everybody, it's not written on their forehead, but not everybody's thrilled to be there all the time. And so if you're all thrilled to be here, and I tell you a couple of reasons why you're going to like it even more, I'm not going to lose you. But if you're been sitting on the line, or maybe the company's going through a reorg, just you walk into situations as a consultant, not an in-house trainer, that we've got to be a little bit more creative. So yeah, stories, analogies, quotes, any kind of reference, and then I'm going to tie that with them in while I'm at it. But I think that's a great way to get started, at least, other than just jumping at curriculum.
Yeah. And we should have started with a little housekeeping at the beginning. As Rob and I talked, we decided that it didn't make sense for him to share a bunch of slides, but so this is going to be more conversational, but please know that he has a terrific handout to kind of synthesize and share some of the things that we're going to talk about over the course of the half hour. So don't feel like you need to take notes furiously. Um, so Rob, though, tell us some of the specific tricks that are some of your favorite tricks for openers. The handout isn't available yet, Nora. We're gonna give it to you after, so you're just
It keeps
focused
you in your
here for now.
seats.
Keep you in your
Smells.
seat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little entertainment for you. Yeah, we've got it. And just so you know, we went back and forth on this. I'm a guy who's ready to present. And Sue said, I want this more conversational. So I built a handout. We're going to be in four basic categories. I'll hit some parts, not others, but we've got, I know where we're going. If it's not in the handout, I'll mention it. Other than that, we're documented on what's going to be happening here. Okay. So, and also, I like the challenge, if you don't mind, of really being hit with just about anything that has to do with training, and see if we can't put a little flavor on it, just add a little something to it, just improve that taste. Okay, so
Yeah, so we did say that we're going to kind of, he and I are going to go back and forth for a bit.
mhm,
But if you have a particular area of your training that you want to say, hey, how can I spice this up a little bit? How can I add some more sauce? Please put it into the chat or raise your hand or whatever. And we'll challenge Rob to see
take a
share
shot
some
at
of
me.
those tricks. All right.
Good.
But let's start with the start. Some of your favorite openings. I know that
Okay.
within our show and share, we've
Yeah.
done, we've talked about openings, but what are some of
Sure.
your
Yeah.
faves?
And if you don't mind, we could cherry pick just about any. This is a 3 hour topic, the opening. But I'll tell you a piece, and I don't have it in the handout, but I'm going to work from your questions. I think one of the toughest parts, if you're, we're talking to trainers and speakers, if you're being introduced by somebody, I think we lose the audience right out of the gate frequently. The client is downloading something off the website that looks like War and Peace. By the time they're done reading it, we don't even like ourselves. And we're sort of on that line of, am I being too arrogant? Am I not giving them enough? I think the key is, Sue, when you ask about starting, is what are you going to say about yourself for the first 60 seconds? I didn't say 3 minutes. I think it's fool's gold. I think the longer you got to remember, I know your story is interesting to you. Is it interesting to the audience? Some of it.
So
I'm
what's
here.
your alternative? I know Katrina Kennedy was on. She said, um, we're going to take 2 minutes. Ask me any question you want, which I thought was really kind of fun. And
Yeah,
people threw out, all kinds of random questions.
yeah.
Um, do you just skip it or do you give 60 seconds?
The intro? No. You tighten it down to 60 seconds. I think 60 seconds is max. And
Yeah.
and in 20 seconds, I just want to finish by telling you that I know this from screwing it up myself for many years. Because when I started, it was about 2 minutes, and then it got to three. And I got to tell you, I love telling the story. And then it got to five, and then it got to seven. And at one point, and these are typical keynotes, 60-minute presentations. It was well over 10 minutes long, but I got to tell you, fascinating. You would have loved it. You wouldn't have loved it. I liked it. So it's fool's gold. I trim it down to 60 seconds, and I would probably wrap in there. Uh, I'm not necessarily tying the WIFM in. The WIFM's coming next. What's the best 60 seconds on you? I can't give it to you in formula because I got to see what that audience is. If I got a bunch of salespeople, I'm going to tailor it that way. If I have a bunch of presenters, trainers, speakers, I'm going to present it that way. But I'm going to try and really cap it at 60 so we can get into the material.
Mhm. Excellent. So as you're moving through, we talked also about sustaining people because let's say you get through that start and you've used stories or you've used quotes, analogies, visual aids, like you've gotten them in. How do you think about like what are
How do you
some of the
hold it?
tricks for sustaining
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
throughout the
For keynoters like me, I know, and by the way, I do tons of workshops, but for keynoters, this is a question we almost don't have to address because I think all of us who've been trainers can hold an audience for 60 minutes. But now we're talking about a half day workshop, full day workshop, 2 day, 5 day. At Xerox, mine were 2 weeks long. Uh, so yeah, we got to be a little bit more careful about that. In your handout, which you'll be getting, I think I've got 15 ideas for you. In my book, I've got 40. But if I were cherry picking, I would say obviously participation is really important. Any type of participating activity. I would throw in humor, but I don't even I think we overvalue humor. I mean, it's a wonderful thing if you can do it, but there's so many people it doesn't come naturally. Good. I got 39 others for you. In other words, I don't think we have to be funny. I think we have to be interesting. So when we get them to participate, that's interesting. When we personalize it, I'm looking, I can't reach it, but I will tell you, I used to do seminars for flood. I went around the country for 2 years talking to claims adjusters, actuaries, underwriters, 2-day workshops on the wonders of flood insurance. But I have a scroll sitting right over there. This is from when I was 24 years old. This says Rob the Thriller Jolles. And I would let that thing fly about 5 minutes into my opening and look at these people that look like this, but I tell them this is going to be a great presentation if I'm not Rob the Thriller Jolles. P.S. 2 years before Michael Jackson's album, so today you are speaking to the original Thriller. But that is a personalization concept. Rob's Rules is a personalization concept. Varying your methods, your pacing, your voice, anecdotal stories, nonverbal cues, competition has to be the right group. But if you're in my arena with salespeople, they love to compete. So we're going to rate some policies. No, actually, we're going to put you in pairs and time it. And the group that gets them right, all right, the first is going to get a bang, kick some energy in there. I could keep going, but the key is I don't want to overwhelm it. I don't want to make this silly. But if I'm doing a workshop, I think we all know we got to do something about every 15 minutes, even if it's turn to your right, left, stand up, sit down. But something's got to go on, a video, a case study, a small group exercise. You know what I'm talking about, but we pace it out. And holding an audience isn't done by accident. We got to think it out.
So when in your notes, which I'm privy to, you talk about appealing to drama and theatrics, and
Unique.
you talk about, pacing and voice and I know like it's going to be different for all different situations, but how much of that do you think of is just kind of your style versus
Love it.
something that everyone could could own for themselves in their own style? Because
Sure.
I've seen keynotes, they're so energetic and it's so dynamic. And then I think, okay, that's not every trainer's personality.
No, but let me give you an example. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's why I immediately started saying, let's stop obsessing on humor. Everybody thinks that we all have to be funny. So when you say appeal to drama theatrics, little things, it's little things. I remember as a kid, I used to love getting cereals because they had great giveaways on the back of the boxes. You could two cartons and you send it in, you get some sort of spy ring. Well, I remember Cheerios when I was at Xerox was given away. If you send a picture of yourself, they'll make a rubber stamp out of it. Well, that was kind of cool back then. Well, I was grading basically papers every day, and I made a couple of stamps. One was me smiling, and one was me frowning, and I would stamp that on there instead of an A plus or whatever. And it was just a little unique, a little unusual. But all right, I'll give you one more. And don't try this at home. Here's one that didn't work for me, by the way. But boy, it almost did. My wife is an artist. She created a jester on a stick with a suit on, looked exactly like me with kind of a smirk. I even built a little clamp on my lectern and I put it up there so I could step away and say, now that trainer is feeling. And sometimes I pick it up and I turn him so he'd look at me and we turn away. And I would be, the problem with it is, as I think a few of you are getting dizzy. The problem is that's an example of me going over the line. Okay, I went over the line. I could feel it and see it. I see some of you nodding. I could, but daggone it, I'm not ashamed to try. I've tried it. Okay, so I'm looking for that line, and there's the other side. Okay, I never got pulled out again. I used it once, and I knew immediately. You know it. It's sort of like Back to the Future when Michael J. Fox, was losing that audience playing that guitar. That's what my audience looked like. I don't know what he's doing with that stick, but there's so many creative things that will fit into your personality. Isn't that the cool thing about training? Really, it is. It's very personality driven. That's why I like giving a ton of ideas and saying, sift through, pick one you like.
What's also fun to me about the example of the stickers is on one hand we think of stickers as childish, sort of like we think of, of worksheets, but some of those things that are so tactile bring back, memories, and they are tactile and they're memory inducing. And it's Gordon, thank you. Yes, people love stickers. And sometimes it is those little things.
Well, I'm going to brag about you right now. I went out a couple weeks ago and I was seeing a group for the second time. I saw them last year. I had to do a review. Those can get a bit tedious, right? Um, I brought in, where are they? I brought in about 8 of these, created my own version of Jeopardy, put those buzzers in front of them. What do we call these things? They're not
Those are the
buzzers.
Me First buzzers, and
Me
they're
first
back in
buzzer.
stock after being out for a little while.
Well, it's
I'm sure
because
my
once
colleague
Jolles got them, there
Sarah.
was a run on them. That group loved that exercise. And just so you know, I've done 22 seminars for NASA. I've trained over 1,100 hostage negotiators, polygraph examiners, 650 of them. I'm giving you an eclectic mix here to show you that guess what? They like to play too. Okay. Can't play in the first 5 minutes. Kind of have to earn the right to get there, right? But we read that room, we read that audience, but there's so many creative things. I even brought these with me too, because I can go right or wrong, or I can give you, what it's at. You won't see this one because it's green. I love these buzzers, a right and wrong buzzer. That's better than me going wrong. I prefer to make the sound of wrong. Little things like that, I think really matter, but we pace ourselves.
Mhm. What are some mistakes, like you said, when you overdid it? What are some other kind of common mistakes that you feel like you've seen people do, or
It's
you've
not
done
very.
yourself and said,
Yeah, well,
okay,
I
no.
think I've been balancing that out a little bit today. The jester, nah, didn't work. The thriller scroll, big time home run. Matter
The
of fact, that
witch? What
thriller
was that one?
scroll, that
Oh,
that
the
scroll
thriller.
that I talked about, that I keep pointing at, that scroll was so interesting that I was working with 25 other trainers on a government contract. We were training insurance companies. Guess what started happening? It kind of got me in a little trouble, but I wasn't sorry for it. I got brought in by management one time saying, listen, I don't know what you're doing out there, but we keep getting requests and they keep saying, we don't know who it is, but we want the thriller. Okay. So, which was making things, but mistakes I've made, I've given you a couple. I think my biggest mistake was getting long-winded in my openings. Huge. Um, Going a little bit too, being a little too entertaining. A term that I love in training. I think you may have heard it. If not, put it down somewhere because it'll keep you on pace. Emphasize everything. Emphasize nothing. I think sometimes we have to pick our spots. And guys like me, we can get animated and a little bit amped up, and sometimes maybe that important part is getting lost a little bit. So we really have to figure out where we want to throw that emphasis, and that's where my visual is going to be. I can
Mm,
obviously be visual on everything, but I know that you ever heard of the saying, what people hear, they forget, what they see, they remember, what they do, they learn, right? I'm going to start using things like that in my head of what do I want them doing? And is that centered on something I want them to learn? I think to answer your question, Sue, my issue was sometimes thinking that we could throw the kitchen sink at them.
mm.
I got a great picture, not from I believe it or not, 15 years as a live auctioneer. I'm licensed and bonded. I only do charities, but I had one, I did it 9 years in a row for this group. I was running out of shtick. And so I had a great idea of, I found a 25-foot ladder in the back. I'm going to flip the room, go up the ladder, present. It was Back to the Future again. Lost the audience, oversticked. So I think we
But
just
I
have to
think we're
kind of
going
watch
to
our language.
the less is more. And I
Yeah.
think that you have in your notes, um, both in terms of too much stick, but also too much material, too many visuals,
Oh,
right? So, like you just said, the focus needs to be, what do I really want people to remember, and how do I communicate that? Because with all of this training, with all of this fun and enthusiasm and excitement, it's fun with purpose.
Yeah.
And you said that when we first started talking, that, none of this is meaningful if you don't communicate and transfer learning.
Yeah. And just to put a pin on that, if we took, this is one person's opinion. So I'll say if I took the top 20 mistakes that a trainer can make, I don't think 19 of them collectively would equal number one, which is too much material. It's tough sometimes. We're sitting in a room, we're going, "Well, an hour. I'll talk about these five things. It's only a page and a half. I mean, how long's that going to take? A lot longer than an hour. I think that and mirrors don't talk back. So that's where what I call ring work, getting some practice in on a presentation. We were talking before, my son is a stand-up comic. You'll see good comics go to open mics. They're going to work out the timing of their material a little bit. So, what's registering. But for me, timing, 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 one of the greatest compliments you can get as a speaker, and I don't mean just for the duration of your training, is for somebody to look you in the eye and say, you know what? You, you got really good timing. And that speaks volumes about what we're doing.
And that comes with practice, practice,
Yeah.
practice,
Yep.
right? Uh, all right. So I could jump in and ask you about some of your favorite finishers, but I'm looking at the time. We have about 10 minutes, and I want to, as we promised the group, to invite you to either unmute or raise your hand or type in into the chat if you have a specific moment or a specific part of your training that you'd like some tips on how to intertrain that or how to bring a little bit more life to that. Feel free to ask.
While you're thinking about it, I'm building you some time. I'm going to do a little bit of self promotion just for a moment. I had an epiphany about 6 months ago. I've got over 600 podcasts under my belt, mainly for salespeople and leadership authors, etc. And I thought we are being underserved. So I created a show called the Presentation Whisperer Show. And I've got trainers. I've got professional speakers, Hall of Fame speakers. I just interviewed a professional wrestler, Hall of Fame wrestler. They got to get audiences up and ready and hold them just like we do. Stuntmen talking about fear. I'm trying to build an encyclopedia of topics and ideas for us. And I'm started in October, and we just did our 65th show. So it'll be on your handout, but love for you to listen in because we really are. And you'll hear the Sue episode because I want a trainer with Trainer's Warehouse in there too. That serves our community. All right, I'm buying you tonight. There's a hand up.
Mary, go for it.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for this. You remind me of a former colleague of mine who literally called himself the Enter Trainer.
Oh, good.
So I don't know if you've trademarked that line, but somebody else has been using it for
We were
years.
talking about that. Yeah, I was thinking
Okay.
about it.
But what struck me the most about him was that he was an enter trainer. He's retired now. And so not only did he, come out and sort of do many of the things that you're talking about and really was engaging the audience in sometimes a very self-deprecating way. The thing about him was that he knew his stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like going up there and doing the shtick. It was, that was his personality coming out. But when he was talking about the content of the training, he was dead serious about that. So there's a time, I think, to, draw people in, and then there's a time to show that you are that you are the trainer with that knowledge, with the expertise that you're working with your participants through. So I'll stop at that.
I love that. And can I'll add a little something to it where pockets where we can make that mistake. I'll give you an example. I don't know if this is entertaining, but it's creative. We get questions from the audience, right? And we always want to answer the questions. But we know that when we're on our game, we can relay a question, right? We can push it back out to the audience. We can push it back right to the individual. Okay. Because a lot of times that's our job. I think you know the answer to that question, Mary. I won't say it out loud, but so, Mary, what have you tried so far? In other words, I'm really being good, maybe a little entertaining, or a great question. Let's ask Gordon. But I think where we make a mistake, Mary, is we never cap the question. So sometimes audiences think, I wonder if Mary actually knew the answer to that question. Because she's like, oh, that's a great answer. Okay, anybody else? So I'll relay it, and say, fantastic answers. What we want to do is, or let me put some emphasis behind so the group knows, wow, the question was answered. I think oftentimes we forget we better bless somebody's answer, right? Unconscious, incompetent move we make. But again, when I'm not on my game, I can forget that one. Don't forget that one. It just frees you up to really get creative. Okay.
Daphne has a question about how to make it more fun or interactive when groups are reviewing the results of their assessment that they may have taken individually while others, while in a room with other team members.
Boy, thanks, Daphne. That's an easy question to answer. Not, but let's try it. Let's just think creatively, and you know what? We got a think tank here. I want to tell you where my mind's going, which is, listen, reviewing an assessment's a review of an assessment, but I'm immediately hearing in my head, I wonder if we can get them in pairs. I wonder if we can do something to break this group up a little bit. Now, they may have to do their assessment, but to share that with one other individual, at least create a conversation about it. Maybe they can help each other with it. But that's a very solitary kind of thing you're doing. And I used to be licensed with DISC and, do assessments, personality profiles, things like that. I know where you're coming from. But what I love to do is not during the assessment, after the assessment. I would say, okay, where are my dominants? Where are my socials? I actually physically move them, give them all flip charts, and have them. I remember I'm looking to try and use this material, how we might be able to sell or manage these people, and say, how do you like to be managed? And they literally, a group of 10 people, are now going to put on a presentation in a few minutes to teach the others how to communicate more effectively with them. So as a guy who's done that, I'm giving my own example, but as a guy who's done an assessment that's very solitary, I thought that was the most useless part of it. The good part was, what are we learning from it? And that's where I think a little bit more activity can come in.
I've also just put in the chat, actually put together a blog post of a whole bunch of ideas of following up disc and personality type activities that I drew from. I think a lot of it was from the ATD community website, because there have been a couple of people who have asked that same question about kind of how to make what to do with the assessments. So it's not like just the reading part of it, but then how do I think about myself? How do I interact with others? And on that list, there's we sort of break it into both understanding myself and working with others. And there are a bunch of activities that you'll find there, including the use of one of our thumb balls, which has different styles on it. And you can say, okay, well, what would happen if we didn't have that style in our
Right.
organization, or this style? With which of the disc, 1 through 4, red, blue, green, yellow, do we associate assertiveness or friendliness? So those are just a couple of ideas. As Rob said, we have a lot of wisdom on this in this community. If anyone else has ideas they'd like to share,
By
please
the
do.
way, while you're thinking about that, I will tell you that it is rich for some improvs from you, the speakers and trainers, because if you put them in groups, it's pretty hysterical. The analyticals will be 5 and 6 pages of flip charts. Okay. The socials never get one word written. They're too busy yapping about it. Okay. The dominants just nailing it and 10 minutes early, and even the way they're dressed. So sometimes that physical movement gives you the opportunity to be a little spontaneous. And as I said, we can learn a little bit more from it. Okay. Enough of that one. Yep.
Uh, any other questions? I think we're pretty close to 12:30, but happy to take another question and or stay on longer as well.
Make sure we get that handout in the chat area because you've officially hit
Oh,
your mark. You've earned your handout.
okay. I know you sent it to me. I didn't haven't posted it yet. Is it available online or should I?
I can do
Oh,
it.
I think I can attach it, right? I can attach it.
If you want, I can do it from here. I may
Okay.
have to be able to share. Let's see if I can do that.
Any other questions for Rob
I
while
think
we're
it's in
doing
there
that?
for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Rob, thank you. This has been a delight. It's been fun. It's been informative, instructive, and it's nice to have you and your energy here in this space to share with us.
Thank you.
So
It's a pleasure. I love, as I said, this is my community. I've been a sales trainer for the last 33 years. I left Xerox 33 years ago. But as I wind down my own career, this is my tribe. So that's why, as I said, I find myself sort of dipping back to the first book I ever wrote, and the people that I kind of grew up with as trainers. So let's keep giving them that
wonderful.
energy and enthusiasm.
Thank you. And uh, I'm going to stop our recording right now, but we're going to stay on. So if folks would like to ask more questions, they're welcome to. Thank you.
Yeah, if you've got somebody in the sales world, a lot of times I've always wanted to write a book called "I Got a Client Who," which means we're now looking at a specific case study. If I got a program delivery that, or I've got an audience who, we can go one on one on those now.